In this tutorial, we're going to create a simple pair using a NURBS sphere and a NURBS plane to make the leaf and a polygon cone to make the stem. Holding down my spacebar in perspective view, I'll go to Create, NURBS Primitives, Sphere, and I'll drag a sphere. I'm going to go to my orthographic views, and in my side view, I'll put it up so it's at the base of my z-axis, and I'll right click and choose Control Vertex. Now I'm in the wireframe because it's easier to see all the vertices we need to edit through the whole piece of geometry. I'll start by grabbing the second row of vertices and I'll move them down, and I'll hit R to scale and I'll pull them in a bit. Now I'll go down to the third row and I'll scale those as well, and maybe I'll pull them down a little bit. So if we would go to our perspective view, you can see how quickly we were able to put together the body of the pear. I'll return to my object mode, deselect. Now we're going to create the leaf. Going to my top view, I'm going to create a path, not unlike the one that is here. Holding down the space bar, I'll go to Create, Curve Tools, CV Curve Tool, and the attributes. I've set the degree of the curve to 2. That'll allow me to get a bit of a curve and drop a minimal amount of points. I'll start to draw a shape that's similar to a leaf. I'll come back to where I started, and I'm going to stop just before I get to the first vertex. I'll hit return, and essentially I've got an open path. I need to close that before I can make it into a piece of geometry. Holding down the space bar, I'll go to Curves in the middle of the hotbox, and I'll click on Open/Close. And now my path is closed, which means I can fill this surface in. I'll hit 5 on the keyboard, and now I'll see the pear filled in with gray. And then when I use planar mapping on this, it will fill in for me as well. Holding down the space bar, I'm going to go to Surfaces, Planar, and the attributes. Now I've been using polygons before, but I want to make sure I'm at the default. So in the upper left hand corner, I'll choose Edit, Reset Settings, and I'll hit Apply. I'll hit W and center the pivot. Now I'm going to want to be able to put the tip of this leaf here against the stem once I put it in. Holding down D on the keyboard, I'll move the hot point to that edge. Going to my perspective view now, and hitting F, I'll right click on my geometry and choose Control Vertex at 9 o'clock. I'll select the 4 vertices in the center, and then with my Move tool, hitting W, I'll pull it up. If I would hit 5, I now have a bit of a bow in there so it looks a little bit more naturalistic. I'll right click and go to Object Mode and Delete by Type History. Now I want to place it on top of the body of the pear. I'll go to my top view, and in my top view I'll start to drag here like this, hit 4 on the keyboard, and I'll scale it. And then I'll go to my other orthographic views to make sure that I've placed it at the top of the pear. You'll need all your orthographic views to accomplish this. If I were to return to my perspective view now and hit F on the keyboard, I have to tweak that a little bit more. There we go. And maybe I want it a little smaller. It's pretty subjective at this point. Now we're going to make a stem, and we're going to use a polygon cone to do so. Holding down my spacebar, I'll go to Create, Polygon Primitive, Cone, and I'm going to go to the attributes. I want the stem to have a bit of a bend, so I'm going to reset my tool. I'll leave the axis at a default 20, but I'll make the height division 3. I'll click inside my viewport now and drag the footprint. And then I'll drag down because I'll have to have the point at the tip of the pear. You'll see there are 2 divisions in here, and that's going to allow us to bend this a little bit and make it look a little bit more naturalistic. Now I need to get this on top of the pear. Once again, I'm going to return to my orthographic views. And in my orthographic views, I'll adjust them so that I can go ahead and I can put this into position over the tip of the pear body. Now, either in my side or front, I'll go to that view specifically, hit F on the keyboard, and holding down D, I'll put the pivot at the tip of the cone. Now I'll hit R on the keyboard to scale it. Hitting F again, I'll now right-click and choose Vertex, and I can select these series of vertexes now that cut the cone into sections, and I can move them a little bit so they look a little bit more naturalistic. I'll hit Command S to save, and if I go to my perspective view now, I have what I'm looking for. I'll Shift Select the three components, delete by type history, and I'll hit Command G to group. Now I'll immediately name that group in my channel box. And once again, I'll center the pivot. I want to color it a green, like the sample to the right, so I'll right-click, and I'll choose Assign New Material. Clicking on Arnold, I'll choose AI Standard Surface. Now in my attribute window, I've named it, and I'm going to give it a color. And I'm going to take the specular weight off, making it 0. And there's my completed pear.